I just want to start on the idea of more companies storing Bitcoin or other crypto on the balance sheet. Is that because the moon music is changing? Is that because regulation is finally creeping through?
Yeah, and I think we've had such progress in Washington, Caroline, that I think it's pretty clear across institutions, across traditional companies, across those who are managing treasuries of large organizations, that digital assets are something they should be thinking about. I was up in New York last week at the Digital Assets Summit, and the amount of enthusiasm and excitement amongst the TradFi and institutional investors was really great, and I think that's extending to companies as well. So I think it's smart. I think it's something a lot of companies are looking at, and I think we're going to see more announcements like this going forward.
It's smart because GameStop gets a pop in its stock when actually its revenues are down 28% year on year. They're able to sort of harness what feels like a feel-good effect that retail likes to trade off. So tell us actually fundamentally how this sort of helps businesses and how you see regulation in particular supporting crypto right now.
Yeah, well, I think the regulatory clarity is key. This is something that the industry has been talking about for many years now. We're seeing a lot of progress. We've seen a lot of actions taken to undo the damaging policies that were put in place when Gary Gensler was the head of the SEC. And we're seeing Congress do a lot of work to establish and put the legislation in place that we need. It seems like every week here in Washington, we have another vote on crypto. 2 weeks ago, we had the Senate Banking Committee, which very rarely holds markups, had a vote on stablecoin legislation. We're expecting a House committee to do the same on their counterpart legislation next week. We also have the final vote to undo the tax policy that President Biden put out at the very, very last days of his term, is going to be repealed by Congress this week. So we're seeing steps. There's a lot of momentum. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think, we've got the White House, we've got the leaders in the House and the Senate are all communicating, they're all talking together, and they all want to get this done. And I think it's a cornerstone of sort of the administration and Congress's priorities for making the U.S. more competitive, more innovative, and more modern. And so I think that does, going back to your original question, give companies some comfort that they can look at these assets as something that will be more stable, that will be welcome, and something that they need to be thinking about going forward.
What's not being tackled that you'd like to see tackled from a regulatory perspective, Kristin?
It's interesting. They're really covering the list. I think it's two steps, like I was saying. The first step is undoing the policies of the past. We've seen the SEC dismiss litigation across the board in the industry. We're seeing Congress fix this IRS rule that was enacted late in the administration. And we're seeing agencies like the OCC undo some of the letters and interpretive guidance that they had put in place over the past 4 years that made it very difficult for crypto to integrate with the banking world. And then, in terms of what we need to get done, we need a stablecoin framework. We need a market structure framework. But I think there's also a lot of interesting things going on with tokenization. The SEC just announced yesterday they're doing a series of roundtables on various topics and are trying to figure out what they have within the existing authority that they have that they can do to help make this space more competitive. So, we're really excited about it. It's a lot of work to do. I think everyone in the crypto policy space feels like they're ready for a vacation, but we're not going to let down now. We've got a lot of work to get done and potentially a short time to do it. But I think once it's in place, it will be lasting, and it's something that will allow the U.S. to be competitive for decades to come.
Briefly, Kristin, is enough being done to sort of get rid of the tarnishing effect that crypto sometimes have? The idea that David Sachs, for example, has done a lot to make explicit he's sold down his assets, his exposure to all these things. But when you've got, ultimately GameStop's like a meme name getting in on Bitcoin, and then you have some sense, and I don't know, it's not factual, but there's a sense from those out there that in many ways people are benefiting from crypto doing well over in the administration. Is enough being done to tackle that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think, David Sachs took steps that were absolutely appropriate for him to do by selling off his positions and funds and various investments. I think that is a smart thing to do. I do think there are a lot of folks within the Trump family that are obviously very interested in this space. But I think the important thing, though, this this is really important work that we need to get done and get across the finish line. And I think there are a lot of different policymakers across the agencies, Congress, and others that are really committed to doing this, and that this is something that should benefit everyone who wants to participate in this ecosystem, including corporations and TradFi and institutional investors, et cetera. So I think this is a space that's only going to grow over time, and that we'll see more innovation that is built on top of these blockchain networks.